This is human.
New video just coming in. President Trump at Arlington National Cemetery minutes ago. This was right after his speech for Memorial Day. He went to Section 60. That's the burial ground for military personnel killed in the global war on terror since 2001, visiting some of the families there. We'll listen to what he said to some of those families that the White House pool photographer picked up in just a minute. This is the second hour of Happening Now. I'm Leland Vittert.
And I'm Molly Line. John Scott and Jenna Lee are off today. The White House also mentioned that the president took a detour there while he was on his visit to visit the grave site of Homeland Secretary John Kelly's son, Robert, who was killed in Afghanistan.
I'm going to check with the control room if we can turn the volume on this up and just listen in as this tape comes in.
You take care. He's looking down. He's very proud.
Thank you so much. Thank you for everything you're doing for the country.
You know, they're looking down.
Very much.
Jimmy knew he wasn't coming home. Jimmy knew he wasn't coming home. And he said he said, Mama, I hope that people don't forget that I ever lived. And if you could remember just Jimmy, that would mean so much to me. I was a Marine also, and a Marine and mother of a Marine. It would mean so much to me, sir.
We will do it.
Thank you so much. It means so much.
You take care of yourself, okay?
Thank you. Thank you so much.
He's looking down very happy. Thank you.
Should I have a picture?
Oh my God.
Thank you.
Jimmy. Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Take a picture.
Thank you so much.
Doing great. Thank you.
Hope your phone has been out now.
Okay?
Thank you.
Take care of yourself. Thank you, folks.
Oh, I need that.
Get your ass on the right side. Okay, guys,
What a powerful scene there to see the president and the vice president visiting with the families of the fallen. Look at that picture. It's incredible to be able to really kind of stand along and to see that video playing out, and you can see the heartbreak of those families. The president in his speech spoke about the loved ones and that the fallen have a special place in heaven and that those loved ones are with God. And he spoke about how they're looking down on all of us today. And here we are getting a chance to see his interaction and the vice president's interaction with these families that have sacrificed so much.
Yeah, we want to give you a little insight on who this young man is. He is Christian Jacobs. His son is of Christopher James Jacobs, United States Marine Corps. And for the past couple of years on Memorial Day, this young man has come in what was a replica of his father's uniform to Arlington to be there with his dad on Memorial Day. And there are some touching pictures of him when he was 4 years old, quoted as saying, "I hope for you to come back soon, Daddy. I love you and hope for you to be here." This was at the father's grave when he was 4. We don't know what was said there. Only the still photographers that travel with the president were able to pick this up. But there is some comfort in the thanks of a grateful nation for all of these Gold Star families. And you got the sense, as we listened to President Trump earlier, Molly, that he felt that emotion. This stop to Section 60 was originally scheduled to go visit the grave of someone President Trump talked about in his speech, which is the son of Secretary of Homeland Security General John Kelly, who died in Afghanistan. Secretary Kelly has always been very poignant that he doesn't want this to be ever made about his son. He doesn't ever want this to be made about him. And the president went and spent some time there and then spent some time with the families. On Memorial Day, you have those huge ceremonies, if you will, that we saw the president attend. And I don't know if we can re-rack this video from the president being there, but also you have not only these huge ceremonies, but then families who all come. They didn't know the president was going to be there simply to spend time with their loved ones. We all spend time with our loved ones on Memorial Day. The only place they can do it is at cemeteries like Arlington.
Yeah, and these moments really speak to not just the sacrifice of the fallen soldiers who sign up to serve and go where they're sent, knowing that they may not be able to return, but to the families that are left behind, these young children, these grieving Gold Star mothers, to see this interaction and to know that, as you mentioned, they didn't know the president was going to be there. They were going there for that private moment with their loved one who has been lost. It really speaks to the sacrifice and the gratitude of this nation when we see these families, all that they've lost, and here they are in Arlington Memorial Cemetery, taking just a few moments to interact with the nation's leaders when they would love to be interacting with their own loved ones.
And the president earlier today spoke at Arlington just before visiting Section 60 here, and of course laying the traditional wreath at the Tomb of the Unknown.
To every Gold Star family who honors us with your presence, you lost sons and daughters, husbands and wives, mothers and fathers. They each had their own names, their own stories, their own beautiful dreams. But they were all angels sent to us by God, and they all share one title in common, and that is the title of hero.
The president finishing his speaking. We're going to move now to the Vietnam Veterans Memorial. There are a number of ceremonies going on, this one at the National Mall, where a ceremony is about to begin to honor those who served. Garrett Tenney is live at the Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Washington. Garrett?
Yeah, and Molly, they are doing the prayer right now for this opening observance, so we're going to take a moment and just wait until they complete that and then talk to you more in a minute.
We'll let you hang there as the prayer out of respect and allow that to continue on during the benediction. This is what we've seen throughout the ceremonies today in the Arlington National Cemetery at the Tomb of the Unknown, the benedictions, these very solemnful moments in which taps is played.
I want to bring in John McCormick here as we take a look around not only at the Vietnam Veterans Memorial, but some of the other ceremonies going on around the country. John McCormick, senior writer for the Weekly Standard. John, what struck me in that very sacred moment that we listened into, a Gold Star mother talking about her son with the now Commander-in-Chief. She said, "Thank you for all you are doing for us." There seems to be a sense among the military now that they are newly empowered, among families of the military that they are newly appreciated.
Yeah, I haven't personally had a chance to interview many military families. That was certainly what she said right there. I think today is it is an important day just to remember all who have fallen, all who fought to defend this country, have given us freedom of speech, freedom of press, and all the other freedoms we have today.
Struck by what the president said, as well as he got extraordinarily personal about this. Every day we have to prove worthy of their sacrifice, and also talked about the sacrifice the families have made, prove worthy of that. The president here at the Tomb of the Unknown earlier as he laid a wreath at the Tomb of the Unknown. John, takeaways for you from the president's speech.
Yeah, I think that was a powerful moment, as you just mentioned right there, that it's sort of a calling for us to rededicate ourselves to their cause, the cause of the fallen, as Lincoln so eloquently put it. I think that was really the takeaway. It was a nice moment, it was a nice speech, and I think he handled himself well.
Well, and the implicit promise between a country and its service members, between the president, the commander-in-chief, and his troops, is that when we send you off to war, it has a purpose. And one of the people that the president talked about in his speech was a young man who went off and died in Afghanistan, and spoke about his wife there in the audience earlier that the president had invited. Earlier today, though, this is what his wife had to say to the president. We're still waiting for that soundbite. We'll see if it comes here. It was, just so you know, Jane Horton, who is the husband of Chris Horton, who was killed in Afghanistan. We'll get that soundbite when we have it. Meantime, here it is.
We have service members that have volunteered to fight and die for us. It's important to pay attention to what we're signing over the blank checks to their lives, and what wars they're fighting and what the strategy is. We owe them, and we owe the service members on the ground, a real clear strategy to win.
And she had went on to say that honoring the fallen means having a strategy for Afghanistan. As this new administration is coming together, do you get the feeling that the gravity of what they're having to deal with and the decisions they are having to make weighs on them, or have they not gotten to that point yet?
I think it certainly does. I mean, I think that the president showed a great deal of seriousness with the national security team that he's finally put into place with Secretary Mattis and others, General McMaster, two men who have actually taken the fight to Al-Qaeda in Iraq and really know what's at stake. And I think that right now the Secretary Mattis has expressed hope that they're shifting tactics to more of a strategy to annihilate ISIS. That's obviously a very tall order, very tough problem, but I think that there is a great deal of seriousness.
Oh, Secretary Mattis, in an interview earlier this weekend with CBS, he was asked what keeps him up at night, and he replied, "Nothing. I keep other people up at night." But that projection of U.S. force is something very different than what President Trump campaigned on when he says, look, I want to get out of America being the world's policeman, for lack of a better paraphrase.
Well, yeah, I do think the president really hasn't shown much of a clear ideology. He can be persuaded on a given issue. I think we saw that with the missile strike against Syria. That was exactly the kind of thing that he would have opposed as a candidate, but seems to have been persuaded by his national security team, which was in full agreement that that was a proper response, a limited response in response to Assad's use of chemical weapons.
John McCormick there on duty on Memorial Day as well. John, appreciate your insights and analysis as well. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, Molly.
All right, we want to return now, rejoining Garrett Tenney, who's live at the Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Washington. Garrett.
Well, Molly, they just finished up with their opening prayer, paying respects to those who have given their lives the ultimate sacrifice for our country. We, of course, did not want to dishonor that respect by reporting during the middle of that. Today, though, this ceremony is about two things: honoring those individuals as well as honoring those whose names have been added to the wall. This past year, 3 more names were added after the Department of Defense determined that those men died after being evacuated from combat and were then eligible to be added to the wall. And there are now 58,318 names on the wall. And as time goes by, the group that helped found the wall is concerned that those individuals, their memories, will be forgotten. And the concern is that especially for the younger generation. And that is why they are now working to put a face with every name on the wall.
By collecting the photos and adding the photos, you really get a sense for more of who the people are that are listed on the wall. For the families, I think it is very meaningful for them to see that their loved one will forever be remembered, and it's not just a name. You'll be able to actually learn information about that person.
And Molly, they have just started the national anthem here, so we're going to cut away for a moment to take that in as well. And Molly, the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund has now collected pictures for almost all of the names on the wall. There are still more than 6,000, though, that are missing, and they are asking for the public's help to be able to find and identify those individuals, put a face with those names. And Jim Knox, he tells me that those states they need the most help with are for the veterans from New York, California, Texas, and Pennsylvania. And you can go to their website, vvmf.org, to submit a photo or to do a search to see what names are still missing from this virtual wall of faces to honor those. Molly?
Garrett, just a tremendous reporting on this Memorial Day. It's incredible to think that there are still names being added to that wall so many decades later. Thank you.
As Garrett pointed out, in terms of putting faces to the names, at Section 60, where President Trump visited earlier, there are now a lot of faces on those graves, mementos being left, and it harkens back to how Memorial Day all began. Back right after the Civil War, it was the wives of soldiers who would come and decorate the graves on Decoration Day to be with their husbands, and now we're sort of returning to that very same tradition to show their sacrifice, whether it be with a children's drawing or a picture of the fallen.
Yeah, and the decorating of graves really, I mean, it happens all across America, and it's some of the things that the first way children are introduced to Memorial Day is to go out and place some of those flags on graves.
Yeah, and now a movement to have a flower on every grave around the country. We'll be right back.
Go to Vision.
A Fox News alert on this holiday weekend, new legal trouble for Tiger Woods. Police in Jupiter, Florida say the golf legend has been arrested on a charge of drunken driving, with the sheriff's office adding that he was booked into a county jail early this morning. Claudia Cowan following the story from our Los Angeles bureau, where she had the very latest. So Claudia, late Sunday night into early this morning.
That's right, Leland. The legendary golfer was arrested overnight not far from his home in Jupiter. That's about an hour and a half north of Miami. It's where he's been living for a number of years and where he owns a restaurant. But take another look at this mugshot. Tiger Woods taken into custody at around 3 a.m. Eastern time, booked into the Palm Beach County Jail 4 hours later, and released at about 11 a.m., so about 8 hours after he was stopped. Now, according to the website TMZ, he was at the wheel of a 2015 Mercedes that was driven away from the arrest scene by one of his associates. Tiger was released on his own recognizance and has been charged with driving under the influence. Now, he last played professional golf in February but had to withdraw from the Dubai Desert Classic because of back pain. He's only made 3 starts in the last 2 years in his latest attempt at a comeback. And this arrest is the latest in a string of tabloid headlines for the golfer, starting back in 2009 when he had a car accident outside his house. Multiple reports surfaced of extramarital affairs, and Woods entered rehab. Now, it isn't known what prompted today's arrest or if anyone else was involved, but it comes just days after Woods posted a long and emotional update on his website in which he says he's feeling the best he has in years after undergoing his 4th surgery to treat his back. Tiger says he wants to play professional golf again, but adds, quote, "I'm not looking ahead. Right now," he says, "my sole focus is rehab and doing what the doctors tell me. I am concentrating on short-term goals." Leland, he may be pain-free, but with this DUI, Tiger Woods' troubles are far from over. Back to you.
Well, the legal issue is certainly just beginning there. Claudia Cowan, thanks so much. More on this story as it develops certainly today and then into this week. Molly?
All right, well, lawmakers are about to return from a week-long holiday recess with a battle in the works over President Trump's budget. So as the White House and Capitol Hill prepare to lock horns, what could the budget mean for everyday Americans? Fresh analysis straight ahead. The White House and Congress preparing to battle over the budget and tax reform. President Trump tweeting earlier today, "The massive tax cuts reform that I've submitted is moving along in the process very well, actually ahead of schedule. Big benefits to all." As the debate plays out, this op-ed in the Washington Post got our attention as well. It is titled, "Trump's Budget is a CEO's Budget. That's a Good Thing." It was written by Gene Marks, a CPA, a small business advocate, and a contributor to the Washington Post on small business and public policy. Joining me now, thank you so much for being here on this Memorial Day.
Thanks for having me, Molly. Happy Memorial Day.
Happy Memorial Day to you. What do you think when you look at this budget? You think it could be a good thing?
Yeah, I really do. I mean, it's funny, is with all, in the week that it was released, there is all this yelling and screaming and this, and but going back and forth on the media. Meanwhile, I mean, Molly, my clients, my readers, I speak to small and medium-sized businesses, even larger, companies as well. They're smiling. The people that run these companies, the CEOs of these organizations, the presidents. I mean, nobody is happy or doing a joyful dance that cuts certain social programs or in education. I mean, nobody likes that either. But for the first time, we do have a president, and this is what I hear from my clients. We do have a president now that's a business guy, and he's in the White House. This is his first budget, and this is the kind of budget that a CEO would prepare.
Yeah, and Congress has yet to get their hands on this.
Yeah,
of course, the House and the Senate, right?
Yeah.
And we'll see what they do to it.
Sure.
But looking at this, so many businesses are excited about the possibility of tax reform. And
Right.
yet we see that, it was so close, maybe we'll see it this summer. Now it looks like it may not happen until next year. Where does that stand, and what could it mean for these small businesses that are watching?
Sure. So I write a lot about this for the Washington Post as well. I am not a believer that we're going to have sweeping tax reform. I think there are really too many differences that are going on right now, both in the House and in the Senate. But there are certain key parts of the tax reform bill, I think, that we are going to see this year. The biggest one is the one that makes business owners' eyes light up, and that's just a reduction in the corporate tax. I mean, right now, the U.S. corporate tax tax rate at 35% is among the highest in the world. So President Trump is proposing to reduce that to 15%. Paul Ryan is more like, I think more like 20% sounds right. But the big deal, Molly, for like people like me running a business is now we potentially have a reduction in pass-through taxes, which means that like I file an S corporation return, all the income comes on my individual tax return. Now those rates might go down as well to as little as 15 to 20%. So I am predicting if you're a small business owner or if you're running a company, you are going to be seeing some corporate tax relief this year.
One of the things that's caught a lot of attention, and it may be where the president's daughter Ivanka Trump makes her mark, is paid family leave.
Yeah.
And that can be a challenge for businesses. Certainly for American women across the country, having a baby, being able to care for that baby, it's a big challenge. What does it mean for small businesses?
Well, I'm going to share with you some of the paid time leave policies, and I'm warning you if I do, you may want to leave Fox News and join some of these companies. Like Netflix offers like unlimited...
I think I'm going to stick around.
Yeah, well, yeah. Well, it's a year's paid time off for new parents, both either spouse. LinkedIn offers unlimited paid time off, and they're not alone. So it is an area right now where, I mean, look, 50%, just about 50% of employees today are part of the millennial generation, the 18 to 34-year-old age group. That's what
That's
Ivanka.
what's driving this?
That's what's driving this. They make up half of the workforce, and paid time off is a huge, huge deal for this generation, like it or not. So a lot of companies are doing that, and a lot of small businesses, we have to respond in some way. So for the government to offer, I think they're proposing, Ivanka's plan is like 6 weeks paid time leave in addition to the 12 weeks unpaid leave funded through unemployment insurance. That would be a big help to a lot of small businesses. Now, whether or not Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell like that, it really does have a big impact on the entitlement states. That still remains to be seen.
And we will see what Congress does. Jane, thank you for joining us here on this Memorial Day.
Thanks, Molly. Thank you.
Leland?
On this Memorial Day, President Trump paying tribute to the fallen as the nation honors the men and women who made the ultimate sacrifice. Hear him at the Tomb of the Unknown. A little bit more on his visit with some families and what he had to say to them coming up. Plus, the president's got a lot of work when he heads back to the West Wing. Tomorrow is the White House on the verge of a major shakeup. Our panel will discuss the possibility of personnel changes and what it means for the president's agenda and you at home.
President Trump performing one of the most solemn duties as Commander-in-Chief on this Memorial Day, laying a wreath at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier at Arlington National Cemetery as America honors our fallen heroes. The president speaking at Arlington on behalf of a grateful nation.
General Douglas MacArthur once said that the soldier who is called upon to offer and to give his life for his country is the noblest development of mankind. We pay tribute to those brave souls who raced into gunfire, roared into battle, and ran into hell to face down evil. They made their sacrifice not for fame or for money or even for glory, but for country.
In the meantime, Vice President Mike Pence kicking off the annual Project Hero Memorial Day bike ride, paying tribute to all those who've worn the uniform in keeping us safe. Kristen Fisher is live at the White House with more on that. Kristen.
Hey, Molly. Well, President Trump is now back at the White House after that trip to Arlington National Cemetery. And, publicly, the focus is, as it should be, all about honoring our men and women who lost their lives defending this country. But behind the scenes, the controversy surrounding President Trump's son-in-law is really sucking a lot of the oxygen here at the White House. President Trump is defending Jared Kushner against these allegations that he allegedly tried to set up a secret back channel to communicate with the Kremlin during the transition. President Trump telling the New York Times last night that, quote, "I have total confidence in him. He is respected by virtually everyone and is working on programs that will save our country billions of dollars. In addition to that, and perhaps more importantly, he is a very good person." Well, yesterday, Homeland Security Secretary John Kelly also defended Kushner across the Sunday shows, and he argued that setting up a secret back channel with Russia is normal and acceptable.
I think any channel of communication, back or otherwise, with a country like Russia is a good thing. I mean, multiple ways to communicate back and forth is a good thing with any country, I think, and particularly a country that's like Russia.
Secretary Kelly didn't explicitly confirm these reports, but he didn't deny them either. Now, Congressman Adam Schiff, the top Democrat on the House Intelligence Committee, is calling for Kushner's security clearance to be reviewed.
If these reports are accurate, right after that campaign, after that intervention, to have the president's son-in-law, a key player within the Trump organization, trying to establish a back channel with the Russians through a Russian diplomatic facility, you have to ask, well, who are they hiding the conversations from?
Well, true or not, all of this controversy is really clouding the president's agenda. Over the last 24 hours, he's tweeted about health care reform, tax reform, and what he views as a very successful first foreign trip. But one of the very first people spotted here at the White House after his return was Mark Kasowitz, President Trump's private attorney who's just been hired to represent him in the Russia probe. Molly.
Kristen Fisher with the many challenges there at the White House that the president is facing, his return from overseas and his return to Twitter. Thank you.
And amidst this, new reports say there could be a major shakeup in the works at the White House, along the lines of what Kristen was just talking about. Mr. Trump reportedly is less than thrilled with his team's handling of the investigations into his campaign's alleged Russia connections. Joining us now, Republican strategist, co-chair for the pro-Trump Great America PAC, Eric Beach, and Democratic strategist, attorney Scott Bolden. Gentlemen, nice to see you as always. Eric,
good afternoon.
Does the president have a reason to be a little less than pleased, shall we say, with his staff?
Sure. Well, thank you to all those that have served our country first and foremost. But
Absolutely.
Here's what I'll say about his moving over to, really putting forth a political staff. The great Ed Rollins did that for Ronald Reagan. I think that's a good thing. I mean, you really want to separate the legislative processes and the achievements and let the administration really start talking about that and shaping that narrative to the U.S. public. But you also need to have a political team, especially when this is a president like Ronald Reagan that ran against the status quo. And the status quo also includes the elements of the mainstream media, elements of the deep state, and they're really out to really not just to get them, but mainly to kind of set forth their own agenda and their own narrative. You need a political team to help manipulate that a little bit better. So I think this is a good thing, separating those two components.
Scott, is this the fight the president should be picking, or should he be focusing a little bit more on policy, focusing on repeal and replace, trying to get his tax reform bill through, or does he need to pick the fights that Eric just talked about?
No, I don't think he needs to be picking the fights at all. Actually, he's his own worst enemy. And if he could focus on those policies, and he gets a war room, and he gets another team in to deal with the Russia investigation, and he could focus on his policy with a Republican Congress and a Republican Senate, he'll be well served. But the challenge for him is, can you keep him on message? Can you stop him from tweeting? And instead of fighting what he believes to be fake news or a witch hunt, because the intelligence agencies and DOJ certainly don't think so, and the Senate Intelligence Committee don't think so, cooperate with them, put his people out there if he's got nothing to hide, and if he's got some concerns, to get lawyered up, but stop talking about it being fake news. Talk about his policy, because he's got midterms in 2018 coming up, and the Republicans don't want to lose that.
Eric, a dear friend of mine who is a long-time and very respected Republican strategist, as soon as he heard the term war room, which is one that senior administration officials were putting out, he goes, why? Why make it this fight? Why continue to sort of play by the common rules and keep going back to squabbling over terminology rather than do it quietly and focus on policy? Why? Does the president need this fight, you think?
I think he enjoys the fight. Look, Donald Trump ran a campaign much like he is governing, which is he is in more tune with the American people than he believes the mainstream media is. And let's be real, there have been achievements from Donald Trump and this administration domestically and abroad, and they're not being promoted in the right way because the narrative that comes out of other elements, whether it be the media or the Democrats or the deep state.
I don't think it's the media's job, Eric, to promote the president's achievements.
No, but they do have a narrative and they do have an agenda sometimes that they do try to promote, and so he needs to. He's dealing with that all the time. You take this latest issue with with Jared Kushner. You have Obama who sent an emissary to Iran that was not part of the administration before he was elected. There is a hypocrisy of how things are being reported about Donald Trump that has not happened before. This president has been mistreated, and I do think he needs a war room to make sure that he gets the facts and sets the agenda right.
We need a war room and call it one or two very different things. But, well, Scott, we'll pick up on what Eric was saying, though. We saw the Harvard study that says a vast majority of the attention that President Trump gets from the mainstream media is negative. Does he have a point? There have been a lot of other back channels. There was a Kennedy Khrushchev back channel run by Bobby Kennedy, a family member. You don't hear people accusing Bobby Kennedy of treason.
Well, there's a big difference, though, here, because in those administrations, Kennedy and Barack Obama, they were elected presidents. What the government is looking at right now, and Mueller will be looking at, and the committees are looking at, is that Donald Trump, Kushner, and others, Mike Flynn, were attempting to do this back channel before they were in office, after they won the nomination, or rather after they won the general election. That's a big and huge difference, and so we've got to be careful with that type of comparative. And if the media is pointing out negative stories about Donald Trump, remember, Donald Trump is a unique politician. He drives every narrative that the media covers. Notwithstanding the leaks are going to continue. Every administration has had leaks, but Donald Trump drives the narrative. He should drive the narrative towards his policy and his agenda, whether I agree with it or not. And as long as he engages in this fight against the institutions that he's a leader of, DOJ, NSA, and others, then that's what the media is going to talk about. And that's why they're not talking about tax reform and health care reform right now.
Scott, it's worth making one point here before I turn the floor over to Eric. It was also Ronald Reagan who, before he was elected, had a back channel to Iran about the hostages in Paris. Even before the election, they had a back channel there as well. Eric, what does the president need to do? He's not going to change the media. The media is not going to change, it appears, at least in terms of the way the Harvard study has pointed things out. So what does he do? How does he win in a fight that so far he's been losing at?
Sure. Look, I think I kind of disagree with many, even in my own party, where I think he does take to Twitter, but try to control it a little bit better. He's speaking directly to 100 million people.
Right.
Try to promote his successes. And I do need to correct the record one thing of what Scotty said. He said, hey, they were all elected. No, Obama wasn't elected before he sent somebody over to Iran to do back channeling. When other administrations do it, it's diplomacy. When Donald Trump does it, it's something different. So I think he needs to take a step back and really keep pushing on the things that he ran on and promoting them. He was in tune with the American people during the election. He's still in tune with them. If you look at the polling numbers, he's still in tune with them on his messaging. He's reduced illegal immigration by 70% just by talking about it before even building the wall. Mm-hmm. He put forth, and the House put forth the health repeal and replace. Now it's to the Senate. Push forth the agenda items that you ran on, and I think he'll be okay.
Well, gentlemen, good discussion as always. Appreciate your guys' insights. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your Memorial Day. As you said, thanks to those who've made it all possible. Molly?
Absolutely.
Thanks,
Tragedy strikes New York's famed Fleet Week. New details emerging in the life of the Navy SEAL who died in a parachuting accident. And as we head to break, a live look at the Vietnam Veterans Memorial, where a special Memorial Day ceremony is underway.
Minds and open hearts.
When I think about a great day,
this holiday weekend is drawing renewed attention to the fight to make sure that no veteran is buried in silence. A man from Illinois is trying to put an end to the shortage of buglers who can play taps at services for vets. Matt Finn has the story.
Hundreds of American veterans die every day, each one unquestionably worthy of having taps played at their funeral.
The most haunting 24 notes that a person hears, and played correctly, it can make you cry.
But unfortunately, today, many veterans are buried in silence. Simply not enough buglers to play the patriotic tune.
How you guys doing? I'll be your horn player today.
Tom Day, a bugler player and Navy veteran, founded Buglers Across America. Grieving families enter their zip code into the website, and it instantly connects them with the nearest bugler. The nonprofit now has 5,000 horn players aged 10 to 95 ready to play nationwide. They've already played more than 200,000 funerals and average more than 2,000 a month, giving families of the fallen a live bugler playing a real brass instrument to salute those buried in the red, white, and blue.
When I see that pride in the families' faces, I go home very happy, hoping that I can do it again tomorrow.
Bugles Across America is also trying to minimize the use of these. It's a box that has taps pre-recorded. Anyone can place it inside of a horn and make it seem like they're playing live. Some people say it gets the job done, but critics like Tom Day say it robs veterans of the true dignity of having taps played live at their funeral. At Abraham Lincoln National Cemetery in Illinois, I'm Matt Finn, Fox News.
Our thanks to Matt. Sadly, there will be another military funeral coming up. A Navy SEAL member died yesterday here in New York. His parachute failed to open during a Fleet Week demonstration over the Hudson River near Liberty State Park in New Jersey. You can see some video of the aftermath there. Brian Yennis here in New York with more on how this happened. Hi, Brian.
Good afternoon, Leland. The U.S. Navy's elite parachute team, the Leapfrogs, was conducting a demonstration in front of a crowd near the Statue of Liberty Sunday. 4 parachuters jumped out of a helicopter, but only 3 landed safely. This video, taken from a nearby high-rise, shows a falling parachute. It appears the 4th Navy SEAL was able to cut himself loose from the failed parachute. It landed in a parking lot. He plunged into the Hudson River nearby.
Next thing you know, this individual came down like a rock. His parachute folded up, and he just...
We heard a smack against water, and then we saw a Coast Guard boat come flying at the area, and then a Jersey City police boat, and then we realized that there was someone in the water.
Happening at approximately 12:10 yesterday in Jersey City. The U.S. Coast Guard and New Jersey Fire Department Marine Unit were standing by. They rescued him from the water. Tragically, he was rushed to the Jersey Medical Center where he was pronounced dead an hour later. The identity of the Navy SEAL has not been released as authorities alert his next of kin. But just before the accident, the Leapfrogs posted this photo, encouraging New Yorkers to look to the skies to see them jump in honor of Memorial Day weekend and in celebration of the Navy Fleet Week here in New York. Leland, a tragic story. Our thoughts and prayers go with the family.
Yeah, cause still unknown. Brian Yennis there in the New York newsroom. Brian, thank you. Molly?
A police officer breaking the mold and busting some moves at the same time. His unique approach to community outreach going viral. We have a chance to talk to him coming up live next. A police officer in Washington State has gone viral because of the way he's connecting with the community that he serves and protects. Bellevue officer Craig Hanaumi, skateboarding with teens, playing the trombone with music students. He says his goal is to break the scripted molds that he has done, certainly much more than that. Officer Craig Hanaumi joins me now. Thank you so much for joining me, officer, on this Memorial Day. We appreciate you being here.
Jose, thank you for having me. And thank you to those who serve our country and protect us.
Absolutely. Thank you. This is an unusual skill set. Trombone playing, skateboarding. How did it become part of the job, essentially, in a way of outreach?
Sure. I'm the community station officer for our department in Bellevue, Washington, and that position allows me a little bit more time to invest in the community, to do things like connect and build relationships. So basically, I just used a bunch of my hobbies to do that.
Yeah, it's unusual hobbies. You have to be pretty coordinated to pull all of this off and talented. When did you first realize that this was a great way to connect, and particularly to connect with youth?
There are a couple clips on YouTube that were taken of me doing a contact that I had in a bank parking lot with some kids who were skateboarding. And that got a lot of positive feedback about the way I connected with them and just spoke with them about skating. And there's a staff at the park, his name is Akash, at the skate park that we have locally here in an indoor park, that posted a really positive Instagram comment about when I stopped by there. And after I realized that I could use those hobbies or activities as ways to connect in a way that wasn't forced or
absolutely. So
like
instead of kicking these kids out of the parking lot, you kind of joined in the fun.
Well, I mean, they got asked to leave at the end, but the difference was that I was spent a few minutes speaking with them. Yeah.
Absolutely. What's the interaction like when you interact? What kind of reaction do you get?
In the beginning, it's kind of people ask what I'm doing, and they ask if everything is okay, you know, what's going on. But I think right now it's pretty comfortable when people realize it's just Officer Craig skateboarding or Officer Craig hanging out, and I love it.
Well, Officer Craig, we greatly appreciate you joining us here today to share a little bit of your story, a little bit of this video. You're doing a wonderful thing, and it was just great to talk to you. What an honor. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Pretty cool to see what's possible when you put in a little extra effort.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Not everybody can do that, that's for sure.
No, not at all. All right, coming up in the next hour of Happening Now, we can't top the skateboarding and the trombone playing, but a closer look at the growing list of challenges facing this White House now that President Trump's back from the foreign trip he calls a home run. And an inside look at the special challenges military spouses face as their loved ones are away.